What if everything you thought you knew about ancient China was only half the story? Picture this: an empire so advanced, its spies weren't just humans, but trained monkeys carrying secret messages. That's right, ancient China's secrets run deeper than the Great Wall itself. From emperors who claimed to be descended from dragons, to a tomb filled with perfectly preserved 2,000-year-old soup, the truths we're about to uncover will rewrite history as you know it. In this video, we're revealing 25 jaw-dropping facts that will shatter your assumptions about this ancient civilization. Ever heard of the world's first mechanical clock, towering 30 feet tall? Or how about the Tang dynasty's female-dominated government, centuries ahead of its time? These aren't just footnotes, they're game changers. Stick around, because by the end, you'll see ancient China in a light so startling, you'll wonder how these stories stayed hidden for so long. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's dive in. Now, let's pull back the curtain on one of history's most mesmerizing mysteries, the Terracotta Army. What you see today in those silent rows of unearthed warriors is just a shadow of their original glory. Imagine this: every single statue was once bursting with vibrant colors, deep purples, fiery reds, and brilliant greens, painstakingly painted to resemble a real imperial guard. But here's the heartbreaking twist: the moment these warriors were exposed to air during excavation, their pigments faded within minutes, leaving behind the muted clay figures we know today. It's like watching history vanish before your eyes. But why would Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the ruthless unifier of China, commission such an elaborate underground army? The answer lies in his obsession with cheating death. This was a man who drank mercury, believing it would grant him immortality, and built his tomb as a lavish underground palace complete with rivers of, you guessed it, liquid mercury. Recent scans of his burial mound reveal staggering amounts of this toxic metal, matching ancient descriptions of flowing rivers in his eternal realm. The Terracotta Army wasn't just art, it was a supernatural security detail standing guard to protect him in the afterlife. And get this, archaeologists suspect there's more beneath the surface, literally. The unearthed warriors, all 8,000 of them, might just be the outer ring of a much grander necropolis. Hidden chambers could contain everything from treasures to traps, mirroring the paranoia of an emperor who trusted no one, not even in death. Some scholars even speculate that his tomb holds a miniature replica of his empire, with mercury rivers tracing the paths of China's great waterways. So next time you see those stoic clay faces, remember, they're the faded echo of a ruler's desperate bid to conquer mortality. And with modern technology peeling back the layers, who knows what other secrets still lie buried, waiting to shock the world. Now, let's shift gears from clay warriors to something that literally set the world on fire: gunpowder. Picture this: in the 9th century, while Europe was still in the early Middle Ages, a group of Taoist alchemists in China were mixing potions in their quest for eternal life. Instead of finding the secret to immortality, they stumbled upon a far more explosive discovery. Their experiments with sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, common ingredients in elixirs, produced a volatile black powder that would change history forever. Talk about accidental genius. At first, this new substance wasn't seen as a weapon. The alchemists called it huo yao, or fire medicine, and its earliest uses were downright festive. Imagine the awe of Tang dynasty crowds witnessing the first fireworks, lighting up the sky with bursts of color and sound during celebrations. These pyrotechnics weren't just for show, they were believed to scare off evil spirits with their thunderous noise. But it didn't take long for someone to realize that if you could launch beauty into the sky, you could also launch something far more deadly. Enter the fire lance, the world's first flamethrower. Picture a bamboo tube packed with gunpowder and shrapnel rocks, pottery shards, even nails attached to a spear. When ignited, it unleashed a torrent of fire and debris, turning any soldier holding it into a walking inferno. These primitive weapons appeared as early as the 10th century, centuries before Europe would see anything comparable. The fire lance was so effective that it became a staple in siege warfare, clearing enemy fortifications with terrifying efficiency. But the real shocker, gunpowder's global impact. By the 13th century, the Mongols had adopted Chinese gunpowder technology and spread it westward through their conquests. Suddenly, castles that had stood impregnable for centuries were crumbling under cannon fire. The age of knights and swords was ending, and the age of guns and artillery was born, all because a few alchemists in China were mixing the wrong potion. And here's the twist: while gunpowder reshaped warfare forever, its inventors never saw it coming. Those Taoist alchemists were searching for a way to cheat death, not create a tool for destruction. It's a reminder that even the most groundbreaking discoveries can have consequences their creators never imagined. From fireworks to flamethrowers, from sieges to revolutions, gunpowder didn't just change China, it changed the world. Now, let's set the record straight on one of history's most iconic landmarks, the Great Wall of China. While many picture it as a single, unbroken masterpiece built by the first Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the truth is far more fascinating. The wall we recognize today is actually a patchwork of efforts spanning centuries, with the vast majority constructed not in ancient times, but during the Ming Dynasty, a staggering 1,500 years after the Qin era. Here's the reality check. Over 70% of the existing wall was built between the 14th and 17th centuries by the Ming rulers, who were desperate to defend against Mongol invasions. Unlike the compacted earth and perishable materials used in earlier sections, the Ming builders opted for stone slabs and bricks, reinforced with sticky rice mortar, a revolutionary mix that gave the wall its legendary durability. Walk along those towering battlements today, and you're literally stepping on late medieval engineering. So what happened to the Qin dynasty's original wall? Much of it crumbled into obscurity. Emperor Qin Shi Huang's version was primarily rammed earth layers of soil and gravel pounded between wooden frames. While imposing in its day, this material couldn't withstand centuries of erosion and neglect. In some areas, all that remains are faint ridges in the landscape, barely distinguishable from natural hills. Archaeologists have even found sections where farmers repurposed the ancient wall's remains, plowing it back into their fields. But the Ming construction wasn't just about durability, it was a logistical marvel. At its peak, construction crews worked around the clock, with laborers, soldiers, and even prisoners hauling materials up treacherous mountain passes. Watchtowers were spaced at precise intervals close enough to signal each other with smoke or flags, creating a communication network faster than any courier. And here's the kicker: despite popular belief, the wall was never continuous. Instead, it zigzagged strategically, exploiting natural barriers like cliffs and rivers to create choke points. The irony: while the Ming invested colossal resources into their wall, it ultimately failed to stop invasions. In 1644, Mongols bribed a disgruntled general to open a gate, leading to the fall of Beijing. But the wall's legacy endures not as a flawless barrier, but as a testament to human ambition. From crumbling Qin earthworks to Ming stone monoliths, it's a timeline of Chinese ingenuity carved into the landscape. Next time you see that iconic serpentine silhouette, remember, you're looking at centuries of adaptation, not a single emperor's dream. Now, let's shatter another myth about ancient China: the idea that women never held real power. Meet Wu Zetian, the only woman in Chinese history to ever claim the title of emperor outright, not just as a regent or behind the throne's puppeteer. During the Tang dynasty, when Confucian ideals insisted women belonged in domestic roles, Wu Zetian didn't just break the glass ceiling, she shattered it with a sledgehammer. Her rise to power was anything but peaceful. Starting as a low-ranking concubine to Emperor Taizong, Wu used her sharp intellect and political savvy to climb the ranks, eventually becoming the empress consort of his son, Emperor Gaozong. But Wu wasn't content with being a mere consort. When Gaozong suffered strokes that left him debilitated, she took control of the government, ruling as de facto sovereign. And when Gaozong died, she didn't retire quietly. Instead, she deposed her own sons, declared herself emperor in 690 CE, and renamed the dynasty itself, an act of brazen audacity no woman had ever attempted. The dark legends surrounding her reign are legendary. Historians accuse her of poisoning her own infant daughter to frame a rival empress, ordering the deaths of family members who opposed her, and employing a secret police force to silence dissent. One particularly chilling account describes her executing two rebellious princes, then forcing their supporters to watch as their families were slaughtered. Whether all these stories are true or exaggerated by later male historians is debated, but one thing is certain: Wu Zetian ruled with an iron fist. Yet for all her ruthlessness, her reign was a golden age for China. She expanded the empire's borders, reformed the civil service exams to recruit talent over nobility, and patronized Buddhism, commissioning some of the era's most stunning art. She even invented characters for her name to assert her divine right to rule. And here's the twist: despite Confucian texts preaching female subservience, Wu cleverly used those same texts to legitimize her rule, claiming she was a sage mother destined to guide the empire. The ultimate irony: after her death at 81, her successors, all men, erased her official title as emperor from records, demoting her back to Empress Dowager. Yet her legacy couldn't be buried. For 15 years, she proved a woman could wield absolute power in a system designed to exclude her. Next time someone claims ancient China was strictly a man's world, remember Wu Zetian, the empress who rewrote the rules, then burned the old ones. Here's your script section. Now, let's turn from power struggles to a financial revolution, one that backfired spectacularly. Picture this: 11th century Sichuan, where merchants groaned under the weight of their wealth. Literally, coins in ancient China were cast from iron or bronze, and buying anything expensive meant hauling around sacks of heavy metal. A single transaction for a shipment of silk could require a wheelbarrow full of coins. So, ingenious Sichuan merchants devised a solution: the world's first government-backed paper money. These early banknotes, called jiaozi, started as simple receipts. Wealthy families deposited coins with trusted brokers who issued paper certificates that could be traded like cash. By the 1020s, the Song dynasty saw the potential and took control, printing official notes with intricate designs and anti-counterfeit measures, even threatening forgers with execution. For decades, it worked beautifully. Trade boomed and the cumbersome coinage problem vanished. Then came the Mongols. When Kublai Khan conquered China in the 1300s, he spotted an opportunity. Paper money meant the government could spend without mining precious metals. But the Mongols took this idea to disastrous extremes. Needing funds for their vast empire, they cranked out currency with reckless abandon. At one point, they printed 1,000 times more money in a single year than the Song dynasty had in its entire existence. The result, one of history's first hyperinflations. Prices skyrocketed tenfold. A bag of rice that cost one note soon required 1,000. Desperate merchants refused paper money, demanding silver or barter instead. By 1341, the system collapsed, leaving ordinary citizens penniless, literally holding worthless paper. Ironically, Marco Polo, visiting during this chaos, marveled at the magic of paper money, unaware he was witnessing an economic time bomb. The lesson: ancient China's innovation was centuries ahead of its time, but without restraint, it became a cautionary tale. 1,300 years before Zimbabwe or Weimar Germany, the Yuan dynasty proved that even the boldest financial breakthroughs can crumble under greed. Next time you fold a dollar bill, remember, those slips of paper carry a legacy of brilliance and peril. Up next, a medical discovery so clever it involved ants and urine. Yes, you heard that right. Stay tuned. Shifting from financial chaos to medical genius, let's explore how ancient China cracked a health mystery centuries before modern science. Around the year 600, Tang Dynasty physicians faced a puzzling condition they called sweet urine disease, patients wasting away despite hearty appetites. Without labs or test strips, they devised a diagnostic method so simple yet effective, it still astonishes doctors today. Here's how it worked. A physician would pour the patient's urine near an anthill. If ants swarmed the liquid, the diagnosis was clear diabetes. Why? Because the ants were drawn to excess glucose, a telltale sign of the disease. This crude but brilliant test predated modern glucose monitoring by over 1,300 years. And it wasn't just folklore. Historical texts like the medical secrets of an official document this practice alongside detailed dietary treatments, advising patients to avoid sweet wines and grains. But the Tang Dynasty's medical innovations didn't stop there. They pioneered early vaccinations using powdered smallpox scabs blown into nostrils to build immunity, a technique that reached Europe only in the 1700s. Surgeons sterilized wounds with alcohol distilled from rice wine, and acupuncture charts from this era reveal nerve mappings still referenced today. One text even described the circulatory system's function with eerie accuracy, noting that blood moves in a circle without stopping, long before Western medicine understood circulation. What's truly shocking, these breakthroughs happened in an era when Europe was still blaming illnesses on demons. While medieval monks prescribed prayer, Tang doctors compiled encyclopedias of herbal remedies with some formulas like artemisia for malaria, proven effective by modern clinical trials. Their understanding of pulse diagnosis was so refined, physicians could detect subtle variations indicating specific organ disorders, a skill requiring years of meticulous training. Yet for all their sophistication, ancient Chinese medicine also held curious gaps. The same texts detailing diabetes tests attributed some ailments to imbalances of wind or dampness. But even these theories had merit. Modern research shows how stress, their wind, exacerbates conditions like hypertension, proving their holistic approach wasn't so far-fetched. So the next time you prick your finger for a blood sugar test, remember, the real pioneers were Tang Dynasty doctors with nothing but ants and keen observation. Their legacy, a reminder that medical genius can flourish in the unlikeliest of ways, even with a cup of urine and a trail of insects. Now, let's step into the Forbidden City, where an architectural secret hides in plain sight, a number so charged with meaning it defied heaven itself. Stay tuned. Moving from medical marvels to architectural mystique, let's uncover the secrets hidden within the walls of the Forbidden City. This sprawling imperial palace, home to Chinese emperors for over 5 centuries, holds a numerical riddle at its heart: 9,999 rooms. Why not an even 10,000? Because in ancient China, 10,000 symbolized infinity, a number reserved for the heavens alone. By stopping just one room short, the emperors showed humility, acknowledging that only the celestial realm could claim perfection. But here's where it gets intriguing. Legend claims the builders secretly added an extra phantom room to appease the gods, a hidden space never counted in official records. Some say it was a secluded prayer chamber for emperors, others believe it housed forbidden treasures. Modern archaeologists have scoured the complex using infrared scanners and ground-penetrating radar, yet this elusive room remains undiscovered. Could it lie behind a false wall in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, or beneath the stone floors of the emperor's private quarters? The mystery endures. The Forbidden City's design brims with such intentional secrets. Take the mythical 9-tailed fox carving near the Palace of Earthly Tranquility, a creature said to ward off evil spirits, or the golden bricks in the throne room, each stamped with the names of craftsmen to ensure perfection. One flaw meant execution. Even the roof tiles were glazed with a special yellow pigment, a color forbidden to commoners because it represented imperial divinity. Whispers persist of even grander secrets. Eunuch chronicles mention an underground network of tunnels, possibly used by emperors to escape assassins or conduct clandestine meetings. In 2008, workers repairing a drainage system stumbled upon a sealed chamber beneath the Meridian Gate, but its contents were swiftly removed by authorities, fueling speculation. Could it have held the lost archives of the Yongle Emperor? Or perhaps the rumored dragon's breath mechanism, a series of bronze pipes that allegedly amplified the emperor's voice across courtyards? One thing's certain, every brick in this 600-year-old complex hums with untold stories. From hidden courtyards where concubines plotted to the laughing phoenix statue said to giggle before disasters, the Forbidden City remains a puzzle box of history. And that phantom 9,999th room, it's still out there waiting to reveal its secrets to whoever dares to look. Next, we'll examine a beauty trend so extreme it reshaped women's bodies for centuries. The disturbing truth behind foot binding is just ahead. Now, let's step into one of ancient China's most agonizing beauty rituals, a practice so extreme it reshaped not just bodies but an entire society's ideals. Imagine the year 1000 during the Song dynasty, when a trend emerged that would torment generations of young girls. Foot binding, the brutal art of crushing and wrapping feet to mimic delicate lotus buds, became the ultimate symbol of feminine allure. The process began as early as age 5, when a girl's toes were broken and folded under her sole. Her arch was then snapped, and the entire foot bound tightly with long cloth strips, forcing it into a grotesque crescent shape. Over years, the bindings were tightened, causing excruciating pain as the bones fused and the flesh necrotized. The goal, a so-called golden lotus foot just 3 inches long, small enough to fit into palm-sized silk slippers. Why would families subject their daughters to this torture? In a culture where marriage dictated a woman's entire future, bound feet became her ticket to status. Tiny feet signaled wealth, proof that a woman didn't need to labor in fields, and aristocrats prized them as erotic objects. Poets rhapsodized about the fragrant hooks hidden beneath embroidered shoes, while men played drinking games where cups were passed between women's deformed feet. The smaller the foot, the more desirable the bride, with the most coveted 3-inch golden lotuses fetching higher dowries. Modern X-rays reveal the horrifying reality beneath the silk. Metatarsal bones shattered into jagged fragments, toes fused at unnatural angles, and entire foot arches obliterated. Walking became a lifelong ordeal, with many women relying on canes or servants to move. Infections were rampant, gangrene and septicemia claimed countless lives, yet the practice persisted for nearly a millennium. Even the Manchu rulers of the Qing dynasty, who forbade binding among their own women, couldn't stamp it out among Han Chinese families, the most chilling part. Foot binding was often a mother's duty. Generations of women perpetuated the cycle, believing they were securing their daughters' futures. By the 1900s, reformists finally condemned it as barbaric, but some remote villages clung to the tradition as late as the 1950s. Today, the last survivors of this cruel practice, now elderly, serve as living testament to the extremes of beauty standards and the terrible price of conformity. Next, we'll explore an ancient innovation that still touches your life every morning. The humble toothbrush has a far more fascinating origin story than you'd guess. Now, let's turn from painful beauty rituals to something far more practical and surprisingly ancient, a tool you use every single day. While modern toothbrushes might seem like a recent invention, their origins trace back to 15th century China, where innovation met hygiene in a way the world had never seen. During the Ming Dynasty in 1498, Chinese inventors crafted the first recognizable toothbrushes by attaching stiff hog bristles to handles made of bone or bamboo. These early brushes were a massive leap beyond the bitter-tasting salt scrubs and rough linen rags Europeans used at the time. Imagine chewing on a salty cloth or rubbing your gums with abrasive herbs. That was dental care for much of the medieval world. But in China, the idea of cleaning teeth with bristles wasn't just about practicality. It reflected their advanced understanding of health. Here's what made these brushes revolutionary. The hog bristles, typically taken from the necks of pigs, were stiff enough to remove plaque but softer than the metal or wood picks other cultures used. The handles, often carved with intricate designs, doubled as status symbols for the wealthy. While peasants might still chew on twigs, the elite flaunted their bone-handled brushes as proof of sophistication. But the story goes even further back. Long before bristle brushes, ancient Egyptians in 1600 BC used chewing sticks, a thin twigs frayed at one end to create a primitive brush. The miswak sticks of the Middle East, made from aromatic Salvadora persica branches, even contained natural antiseptics. Yet it was the Chinese who took these concepts further, transforming dental care into something systematic. The real shock: Europe wouldn't adopt toothbrushes for nearly 3 centuries. When European travelers finally brought Chinese toothbrushes home in the 17th century, many considered them bizarre luxuries. Some even feared bristles would scrape away tooth essence, preferring rotten teeth over this foreign tool. It wasn't until mass production in the 18th century that toothbrushes became mainstream, another example of how China's innovations raced ahead of the Western world. So the next time you brush your teeth, remember, those nylon bristles owe their existence to a Ming Dynasty inventor who looked at a pig and thought, "This could make smiles brighter." Coming up, we'll uncover an ancient device so precise it detected earthquakes from miles away centuries before modern seismographs existed. But let's shift from the mundane to the miraculous, where ancient innovation met the unpredictable fury of nature. Centuries before modern science could explain tectonic shifts, a Han Dynasty genius named Zhang Heng cracked the code of earthquakes with a device so ingenious it still baffles engineers today. Picture this: in the year 132, while most of the world blamed quakes on angry gods or mythical beasts, Zhang unveiled a bronze masterpiece that could pinpoint a tremor's direction from miles away. This wasn't just a lucky guess. Zhang's seismoscope stood tall as a hollow bronze vessel, adorned with 8 dragon heads gazing in the cardinal directions. Each dragon clutched a bronze ball in its jaws, poised above the open mouths of 8 corresponding frogs below. The secret lay inside, a delicate pendulum system hidden within the vessel. When an earthquake's vibration struck, the pendulum would sway, triggering a mechanism that released a ball from the dragon facing the quake's origin. That ball would clatter into the frog's mouth with a resounding clang, while a secondary mechanism inside narrowed down the distance, the brilliance. It worked. Historical records tell of a day when the Western dragon dropped its ball, though no tremors were felt in the capital. Days later, a messenger arrived reporting a massive quake in a western province hundreds of miles away, proof the device detected what human senses couldn't. Modern recreations confirm its shocking accuracy for nearby quakes, with some engineers arguing its design was more reliable than early 20th century seismographs. What makes this invention even more astonishing is the context. In an era when Greco-Roman scholars still debated whether earthquakes were caused by underground winds or Poseidon's trident, Zhang understood vibrations traveled in waves. His design exploited resonance principles that wouldn't be formally studied for another 1500 years. And while Europe's first crude seismometer emerged in 1784, a full 16 centuries later, it couldn't match the elegance or directional precision of the Han Dynasty original. Zhang's legacy goes beyond one device. As the emperor's chief astronomer, he also crafted a rotating celestial globe mapping star movements and debunked myths about eclipses being heavenly omens. But his seismoscope remains a testament to how ancient China's blend of artistry and engineering outpaced the world. Today, replicas of his dragon jar sit in museums worldwide, reminding us that sometimes the past holds answers we're still catching up to. Up next, prepare to meet a mythical ruler whose 100-year reign supposedly birthed everything from silk to medicine. But was he one man or many? The truth lies buried in both legend and DNA. Now let's journey even further back to a time when history blurs with legend, and a single figure emerges as the cornerstone of Chinese civilization. The Yellow Emperor, or Huangdi, isn't just a ruler, he's a cultural titan whose alleged 100-year reign laid the foundations for everything from medicine to silk. But here's the twist: modern science suggests this one man might actually be a fusion of many. According to ancient texts, the Yellow Emperor ascended to power around 2697 BCE, commanding not just armies but the very fabric of innovation. He's credited with inventing acupuncture, pioneering silk production by unraveling the secrets of silkworms, and even devising the Chinese calendar, a system so precise it harmonized agriculture with celestial cycles. But how could one person achieve so much? That's where the mystery deepens. Recent DNA studies reveal something fascinating. Genetic evidence points to the Yellow Emperor not as a singular historical figure, but as a symbolic amalgamation of multiple tribal leaders. Think of him as a composite, a legendary face given to generations of innovations attributed to different chieftains across centuries. This theory aligns with archaeological finds showing staggered advancements in silk weaving and medical tools across various regions, all later unified under Huangdi's myth. The Yellow Emperor's lore is packed with contradictions that hint at this layered truth. Some texts describe him as a warrior who unified warring tribes through bloodshed, while others paint him as a sage who governed with wisdom. His inventions span too vast a timeline to fit one lifespan. Silk cultivation alone would have taken generations to perfect. Even his legendary battle with the rebel Kaiyu, where he supposedly deployed compass-guided chariots, mirrors later military technologies retroactively tied to his name. What makes this enigma so compelling is its cultural weight. For millennia, the Yellow Emperor served as the ultimate ancestor, claimed by emperors and commoners alike to legitimize power or heritage. Today, his legacy endures in rituals like the Qingming Festival, where people honor ancestors, and in DNA projects tracing Chinese lineages back to Huangdi's clan. Yet science nudges us to see him differently. Not as a man, but as a mirror reflecting how civilizations consolidate their origins into a single, shining myth. As we peel back these layers, one thing becomes clear: whether real or symbolic, the Yellow Emperor's influence is undeniable. He's the thread weaving through China's identity, a testament to how legends can shape history as powerfully as facts. Up next, we'll gaze skyward to uncover how ancient astronomers documented cosmic explosions with precision that put medieval Europe to shame. Now, let's turn our gaze upward to a realm where ancient science and cosmic wonder collide. While medieval Europe was still mired in superstition about the heavens, Chinese astronomers were making breathtakingly accurate records of celestial phenomena, including supernovas so bright they outshone the moon. One of their most stunning observations, the so-called guest star of 1054 CE, now known to be the explosive birth of the Crab Nebula. What makes this discovery extraordinary is its precision. Chinese court astronomers didn't just note a strange light in the sky, they documented its exact position between the horns of Taurus, its duration visible to the naked eye for 653 days, and even its changing colors. These details, preserved in imperial records like the Songshi, align perfectly with modern astrophysics. Meanwhile, European texts from the same era barely mention the event, likely because the Catholic Church discouraged unholy stargazing. But in China, astronomy was a sacred duty. Emperors believed celestial events held divine messages about their rule, so court astronomers maintained meticulous logs. A misreported eclipse or comet could cost them their heads literally. This wasn't just about superstition, though. Ancient Chinese astronomers pioneered tools like the armillary sphere to map star movements and invented the equatorial telescope centuries before the West. Their records of solar eclipses date back to over 4,000 years ago, with timing so precise modern scientists use them to study Earth's slowing rotation. But the Crab Nebula observation stands out because it reveals their grasp of cosmic transience. While other cultures saw the heavens as unchanging, Chinese scholars accepted that stars could die and rebirth in violent glory. The 1054C supernova wasn't an isolated case. Imperial astronomers logged at least 12 guest stars between 522 BCE and 1604 CE, many later confirmed as supernovas or comets. Some entries read like omens. A broom star appeared at the east horizon, its rays piercing the heavens. The emperor must examine his governance. Others, like the star that heralded Genghis Khan's rise, became political propaganda. Yet beneath the mysticism lay rigorous science. By comparing Chinese records with radio telescope data, researchers have even pinpointed the exact remnants of long-vanished stars. What's truly humbling is how these ancient observers achieved so much with so little. Without telescopes or spectroscopy, they decoded the universe's drama through patience and ink. Today, their work helps astronomers track stellar life cycles and reminds us that curiosity transcends time. Next, we'll witness how political fear once grounded the world's greatest naval fleet as the Ming dynasty turned its back on the open seas. Now let's set sail into one of history's most dramatic about faces. Imagine a world where Chinese treasure ships, not European caravels, dominated the age of exploration. This almost happened until the Ming dynasty deliberately scuttled its naval supremacy. Following Admiral Zheng, his 7 legendary voyages between 1405 and 1433, which reached as far as East Africa with fleets boasting 317 ships and 28,000 crewmen, China abruptly turned inward. The reason? A power struggle between Confucian scholars and the eunuch faction that backed maritime expansion. The Confucian officials, wary of the enormous costs and foreign influences brought by Zheng his expeditions, convinced the emperor that China's real threats lay inland, the Mongols, not distant kingdoms. In a stunning act of historical erasure, they burned most of the nautical charts and shipbuilding records. By 1477, constructing ocean-going junks with more than 2 masts became a capital offense. This 100-year shipbuilding ban wasn't just a policy shift, it was cultural amnesia. The same dynasty that built 400-foot-long treasure ships, 5 times larger than Columbus's Santa Maria, later forgot how to make them. Let's pause to consider what was lost. Zhenghi's fleets had already mapped the Indian Ocean, established tribute relations from Java to Mecca, and even brought giraffes to the imperial court as diplomatic gifts. His ships featured watertight bulk compartments, a technology Europe wouldn't adopt for 400 years, and carried advanced magnetic compasses. Had China pressed its advantage, it might have colonized Australia or rounded the Cape of Good Hope decades before the Portuguese. Instead, shipyards rotted and sailors turned to farming. When Portuguese traders finally reached China in 1516, they found a coastline defended by outdated patrol boats. The ripple effects of this decision are staggering. Without Chinese competition, Europe faced no naval rivals during its colonial scramble. Spain and Portugal divided the New World between them in 1494, while China's once mighty docks sat silent. Some historians argue that even if China had colonized, its Confucian bureaucracy would have prioritized cultural assimilation over exploitation, potentially preventing the transatlantic slave trade. Others speculate about a Sino-American empire stretching from California to Peru, with Mandarin becoming a global lingua franca instead of English. What makes this collapse of ambition so haunting is its timing. Just 60 years after Zhenghe's final voyage, Columbus stumbled upon the Americas using maps far cruder than those the Ming had destroyed. China's retreat from the seas didn't just alter its own destiny, it handed Europe 5 centuries of global dominance. And that leads us to an even more intimate revolution, how a dining necessity you use daily began not as utensils but as tools for survival. Now, let's turn our attention to something you probably use without a second thought: chopsticks. Believe it or not, these slender utensils didn't start as dining tools at all. Their origins trace back to the Shang dynasty around 1200 BCE, when bronze sticks were first crafted not for eating but for cooking. Picture ancient chefs using these sturdy implements to fish meat and vegetables out of boiling pots, avoiding burns and keeping their hands clean. It was practicality, not etiquette, that gave birth to chopsticks. But how did they make the leap from kitchen tools to dinner tables? The answer lies in a cultural revolution. By 400 CE, Confucian ideals had taken hold, and with them came a distaste for the violence of knives at meals. Confucius himself famously said, "The honorable and upright man keeps well away from the slaughterhouse and the kitchen," so using blades to cut food at the table clashed with these values. Vegetarianism also gained traction among scholars and elites, making chopsticks perfect for picking up bite-sized morsels, the utensil of choice. Over time, their use spread beyond the upper classes, becoming a symbol of refinement. Here's where it gets fascinating. Chopsticks evolved strict etiquette rules that still resonate today. For example, never stick them upright in a bowl of rice. Why? Because it mimics incense sticks burned at funerals, symbolizing death, a taboo at the dining table. Other rules include not spearing food like a fork, too aggressive, not waving them around while talking, distracting, and definitely not passing food directly from one pair to another, a funeral rite for bones. Even the materials mattered. Jade and silver chopsticks were believed to detect poisons by changing color, a handy feature for paranoid emperors. What's truly remarkable is how this simple tool reflects deeper cultural values. Unlike the West's fork and knife combo, which emphasizes cutting and portion control, chopsticks promote harmony. Food is prepared in advance to be shared communally, requiring cooperation rather than individual dominance. They also demand dexterity. Studies show regular use strengthens fine motor skills in children. From bronze cooking sticks to global icons, chopsticks tell a story of how practicality, philosophy, and social norms can shape even the most everyday objects. And speaking of objects with hidden histories, wait until you hear about the ancient Chinese innovation that kept time with water and stars centuries before Europe caught up. Now, shifting our focus from everyday objects to groundbreaking social norms, let's uncover one of ancient China's most progressive secrets. During the Tang dynasty, a staggering 30% of government officials were women, a figure that would shock even modern societies. This era, often called China's Golden Age, broke gender barriers in ways that later dynasties would actively suppress. At the heart of this revolution was Princess Taiping, a political powerhouse who didn't just navigate the male-dominated court, she dominated it. Daughter of Empress Wu Zetian, the only female emperor in Chinese history, Taiping wielded influence that rivaled emperors. She orchestrated coups, controlled military appointments, and even dictated policy debates behind the scenes. While never crowned herself, her unofficial reign proved that women could govern just as effectively as men. But the Tang dynasty's inclusivity didn't stop at the palace gates. Women ran thriving businesses, from silk workshops to tea houses, with records showing female merchants outperforming male counterparts in some markets. The capital city of Chang'an buzzed with female entrepreneurs who owned property, signed contracts, and even lent money to male relatives. This economic independence was unheard of in later periods, when Confucian conservatism pushed women into domestic seclusion. Then there were the so-called equality marriages, a scandalous trend among Tang elites. In these unions, wives kept their maiden names, a radical defiance of tradition that signaled equal standing with their husbands. Some couples even lived with the wife's family, flipping the script on patriarchal norms. These marriages weren't just personal choices. They reflected a broader cultural moment where women's voices carried weight in both public and private life. What makes this era even more remarkable is how sharply it contrasts with what followed. By the Song dynasty, foot binding had emerged, and women were literally and figuratively shrinking from public life. The Tang's legacy of female empowerment was systematically erased, buried under layers of restrictive Neo-Confucian ideology. Yet fragments remain: court records, poetry, and legal documents that prove women once walked corridors of power as equals. As we marvel at this hidden chapter of gender progress, let's turn to an invention that combined engineering brilliance with celestial wonder, a clock so advanced it outpaced the world by centuries. Now, as we move from the heights of Tang dynasty progress to the shadows of ancient warfare, prepare to encounter one of history's darkest innovations: biological weapons. Long before modern germ theory, ancient Chinese strategists mastered the art of turning nature itself into a weapon, with consequences that would ripple across continents. The most infamous example comes not from China itself, but from its Mongol conquerors who adopted and amplified these brutal tactics. In 1346, during the siege of Kaffa, a Black Sea trading post, Mongol forces under Janibek Khan faced a deadly obstacle: the bubonic plague ravaging their ranks. Rather than retreat, they weaponized the disease, catapulting infected corpses over the city walls. Italian merchants fleeing the horror of Kaffa likely carried the plague to Europe, igniting the Black Death pandemic that would kill tens of millions. This grim strategy had roots in earlier Chinese warfare, where contamination was a calculated tool of terror. Centuries before the Mongols, Han Dynasty generals perfected subtler but equally devastating methods. During campaigns against the Xiongnu nomads, soldiers poisoned wells with toxic herbs like wolfsbane and aconite, ensuring enemies either abandoned their lands or succumbed to agonizing deaths. Manuscripts from the era describe rotten oxen left in water sources, an early form of biological sabotage. These acts weren't random cruelty. They followed meticulous military treatises like The Art of War, which advised subduing the enemy without fighting through psychological and environmental warfare. What's truly chilling is how advanced these techniques were for their time. Han medics had identified specific plants that caused vomiting, paralysis, or fatal heart failure, tailoring poisons to different strategic needs. Some sieges even employed smoke bombs laced with toxic compounds, creating choking clouds that weakened defenders. This macabre innovation highlights a paradox: the same civilization that gifted the world paper and compasses also pioneered methods of mass suffering. The legacy of these tactics endured far beyond ancient battlefields. When the Mongols later besieged Chinese cities, they turned Han poison recipes against their inventors, creating a vicious cycle of retaliatory biological strikes. Even today, traces of these ancient toxin wells persist in remote regions, where archaeologists find vessels still coated in residues deadly enough to harm modern researchers. As we reflect on warfare's darkest chapters, let's shift to a brighter marvel: a towering invention that merged celestial magic with mechanical genius, proving ancient China's capacity for both destruction and wonder. But now, let's turn from the grim ingenuity of ancient warfare to a breathtaking marvel of human innovation, one that proves ancient China's genius wasn't limited to destruction. Imagine standing before a towering masterpiece of bronze and wood, its intricate gears humming as it mapped the heavens and measured time with uncanny precision. This was Su Song's astronomical clock tower, a 30-foot-tall wonder that dwarfed everything Europe had to offer in the 11th century. Built in 1092 during the Song dynasty, this mechanical colossus wasn't just a clock, it was a celestial observatory, a timekeeper, and a triumph of hydraulic engineering all in one. At its heart lay a water-driven escapement mechanism, a revolutionary concept that used the steady flow of liquid to power its movements with flawless accuracy. While medieval Europe relied on sundials and hourglasses, Xu Song's creation could track the positions of stars, predict eclipses, and even chime the hours automatically. The clock's armillary sphere, a nest of rotating rings, mirrored the night sky so precisely that astronomers could use it to calibrate their instruments. What made this invention truly extraordinary was its sheer complexity. The tower housed a series of interlocking gears and pulleys, with figurines that emerged from miniature doors to strike bells and drums at set intervals, a precursor to the cuckoo clocks of later centuries. But unlike those quaint timepieces, Xu Song's clock synchronized with the cosmos. Its celestial globe rotated in real time, matching the slow dance of constellations overhead. This wasn't just a tool for telling time, it was a working model of the universe itself. The clock's legacy is even more astonishing when you consider the context. Europe wouldn't develop anything comparable until the 14th century, and even then, those early mechanical clocks were crude by comparison. Xu Song's design was so advanced that modern engineers have struggled to replicate it perfectly from his surviving manuscripts. Some scholars believe the tower's secrets died with its creator, lost when invading Jurchen forces destroyed the original in 1227, yet fragments of its influence endure. The escapement mechanism, a cornerstone of all mechanical clocks, traces its roots to this Song dynasty marvel and the idea of merging astronomy with timekeeping. That spark of genius would eventually ignite the scientific revolution half a world away. So the next time you check your watch, remember, you owe that simple act to a 30-foot masterpiece that once bridged earth and sky in ancient Kaifeng. Now, shifting from the mechanical wonders of the Song dynasty, let's delve into a realm where myth and power intertwined, the divine claims of ancient China's emperors. Among the most audacious was the assertion of dragon ancestry, a legend wielded by rulers like Liu Bang, founder of the Han dynasty, to cement their divine right to rule. Stories circulated that his mother conceived him after encountering a dragon, a narrative carefully crafted to portray him as heaven's chosen. But what lay beneath these tales? The answer lies in something far more tangible yet equally mysterious, the so-called dragon bones. These ancient relics, often cited as proof of imperial divinity, were actually a mix of oracle bones used for divination and dinosaur fossils. Shang dynasty priests would inscribe questions on ox scapulae or turtle shells, then heat them until they cracked, interpreting the fractures as messages from the gods. Centuries later, farmers unearthed these very bones, mistaking their cryptic markings for dragon script. Even more fascinating, some dragon bones were likely the remains of prehistoric creatures, their massive vertebrae and teeth fueling legends of serpentine deities. In fact, many fossils ground into traditional medicines were later identified as Stegosaurus or sauropod remnants, blending paleontology with mythology long before modern science intervened. The dragon's symbolic weight extended far beyond imperial propaganda. Unlike Western dragons, often depicted as malevolent beasts, the Chinese dragon symbolized benevolent power, cosmic balance, and agricultural prosperity. Emperors adopted it as their exclusive emblem, stitching golden dragons onto robes and adorning thrones with their coiled forms. The Forbidden City alone boasts over 12,000 dragon motifs, from roof tiles to stair railings, each asserting the ruler's celestial mandate. Even today, the dragon thrives as a cultural icon, appearing in festivals, zodiacs, and idioms like "hoping one's child becomes a dragon," a metaphor for success. This enduring legacy reveals a deeper truth. The dragon was more than a political tool. It embodied the harmony between humanity and nature, a theme central to Chinese philosophy. From oracle bones to modern parades, the dragon's journey mirrors China's own, a civilization that turned myth into identity and bones into empire. And with that, we're ready to uncover another marvel, the astonishing efficiency of the Song dynasty's postal system, which put even the Pony Express to shame. Now, let's gallop into a feat of logistics that would make even the Wild West's Pony Express blush. The Song dynasty's postal system, a marvel of speed and precision that connected an empire vast as a continent. Imagine a network so efficient that messages could streak across 300 miles in a single day, faster than any horseback rider in medieval Europe. This wasn't just a series of trails, it was a state-engineered superhighway of information, powered by 20,000 couriers, fortified way stations, and an early form of passport control. At the heart of this system were the relay stations spaced every 10 to 15 miles, where fresh horses and runners stood ready around the clock. Couriers carried bamboo tubes containing imperial edicts, military reports, or tax records, each stamped with seals to prevent tampering. But here's where it gets ingenious. To prioritize urgent messages, the Song introduced a color-coded tagging system. Red tags signaled top priority dispatches, think wartime alerts or rebel uprisings, which meant horsemen would ride at breakneck speed, switching mounts at every station without pause. Even in peacetime, routine green tagged missives outpaced European messengers by days, thanks to the sheer density of way stations. Compare this to Europe's fragmented medieval systems, where a letter from Paris to Rome might take weeks, bouncing between private carriers and monastic networks. While the Song couriers enjoyed government salaries, free lodgings, and even tax exemptions, their European counterparts often relied on merchant guilds or pilgrim routes with no standardized speeds or safeguards. And let's talk passports. Song officials issued Xinpao, cloth credentials embroidered with the courier's rank and route, a precursor to modern ID. Lose yours and you'd face severe penalties, a stark contrast to Europe's ad hoc trust system. The scale was staggering. By the 12th century, the Northern Song boasted over 5,000 way stations, with some routes stretching 2,000 miles. One surviving record describes a general receiving battlefield updates from the front lines in just 48 hours, a feat unmatched until the telegraph era. This wasn't just about speed, it was about control. The emperors used this network to tighten their grip on distant provinces, ensuring rebellions were crushed before rumors even spread. So next time you grumble about overnight shipping, remember, the Song dynasty mastered the art of instant communication 8 centuries ago, turning information into the ultimate weapon of empire. And as we ride further into history's shadows, prepare to encounter another deadly innovation, the crossbow trigger mechanism, an invention so revolutionary it reshaped warfare forever. Now, let's turn our focus to a game-changing innovation that reshaped the battlefield, the ancient Chinese crossbow trigger mechanism, a marvel of engineering that turned peasants into formidable warriors with just weeks of training. While European armies relied on longbows that demanded a lifetime of practice to master, Chinese strategists unlocked the secret to mass-producing military power with standardized bronze triggers as early as 400 years before the Common Era. Picture this, a simple yet deadly device made of interlocking bronze pieces, precision crafted to fit any crossbow in the empire. This wasn't just a technological leap, it was a logistical revolution. For the first time in history, a ruler could arm thousands of conscripts with weapons as lethal as those of seasoned archers. The genius lay in the modular design. Each trigger mechanism could be swapped between crossbows like parts in a modern factory, ensuring rapid repairs and replacements even mid-campaign. Contrast this with medieval Europe, where a single longbowman needed years to build the strength and skill to fire arrows capable of piercing armor. English kings famously mandated archery practice from childhood, knowing it took decades to cultivate elite bowmen. But in China, a farmer handed a crossbow could become a soldier in weeks. The trigger mechanism did the heavy lifting literally. Its precision engineering meant even a novice could aim and release with consistent accuracy, while the mechanical advantage allowed bolts to punch through armor at 200 paces. Then came the repeating crossbow, or zhuge nu, a weapon so terrifying it's been called the ancient world's machine gun. Invented during the Warring States period, this multi-shot marvel could unleash 10 bolts in 15 seconds, a rate of fire unmatched until the 19th century. Soldiers cranked a lever to chamber each new bolt from a gravity-fed magazine, creating a hailstorm of projectiles. Historical records describe its psychologically crushing effect. Han Dynasty armies used it to break cavalry charges by saturating the air with deadly fire. What's astonishing is how these innovations democratized warfare. Where European battles often hinged on small codders of elite warriors, Chinese armies could field vast numbers of effective crossbowmen with minimal training. The standardization extended to ammunition too. Each bolt's dimensions were regulated down to the millimeter, ensuring compatibility empire-wide. Archaeologists have found trigger mechanisms from distant provinces that fit together perfectly, proof of an industrial mindset centuries ahead of its time. While European knights clung to swords and lances as symbols of nobility, Chinese warfare embraced the cold efficiency of mass production. The crossbow trigger didn't just win battles, it redefined who could fight, how quickly they could be mobilized, and ultimately how empires were built. And as we'll soon see, this pragmatic ingenuity extended far beyond the battlefield, into realms where power was measured not in bolts fired, but in secrets kept and legacies rewritten. Now, let's step away from the battlefields and into the quiet halls of history, where one family's legacy has endured like no other. Imagine walking through a sprawling compound in Quefu, Shandong province, where the descendants of Confucius himself have lived for 2,500 years. This isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a living dynasty, with over 60,000 members of the Kong family still preserving rituals and traditions that began centuries before the Common Era. The Kong family compound isn't merely a home, it's a time capsule. Passing through its gates is like stepping into the past, where ancestral tablets line the halls and ceremonies dating back to the Han Dynasty are still performed with reverence. What's astonishing is the unbroken lineage. While other great families faded into history, the Kongs meticulously documented every generation, creating what may be the world's longest continuous family tree. Modern DNA studies have confirmed their claims, with genetic markers tracing directly back to Confucius's era. But this isn't just about preserving the past. The Kong family wields surprising influence in modern China. During the Cultural Revolution, Red Guards targeted Confucius's tomb and relics, viewing his teachings as counter-revolutionary. Yet the family survived, and today they've regained prominence. The Chinese government now actively promotes Confucianism as a cultural soft power tool, with Kong family members often appearing at state events. The current patriarch, Kong Daong, holds honorary university positions and advises on traditional values, a remarkable turnaround for a philosophy once banned as feudal. The compound itself is a marvel. With over 400 rooms across 140,000 square meters, it rivals imperial palaces in scale. Unlike the Forbidden City's frozen grandeur, though, this is a living space. Family residences sit alongside ancestral halls, where incense burns daily before portraits of Confucius. The library houses priceless artifacts, including handwritten editions of the Analects passed down through generations. What makes the Kong family truly unique is their role as cultural custodians. While other ancient lineages died out or assimilated, they've maintained distinct traditions for centuries. Even their naming conventions follow a poetic system established during the Ming Dynasty. Each generation takes one character from a 32-character poem written by an emperor in 1381. Today's youngest Kongs are named from verse lines penned 600 years ago, creating an unbroken chain of remembrance. In a world where dynasties rise and fall, the endurance of Confucius's bloodline is nothing short of miraculous. It's a testament to how deeply his teachings shaped China, so much so that even revolutions couldn't erase his legacy. And as we'll see next, China's ancient innovations weren't limited to philosophy and warfare. They even extended into the realm of criminal justice with methods that might surprise you. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most secretive and controversial institutions in ancient Chinese history, the Department of Eunuchs during the Qing dynasty. Behind the glittering facade of the Forbidden City, eunuchs wielded a level of power that often rivaled even the emperor's closest advisors. Their influence was both feared and envied, but their path to authority came at a brutal price. The castration process itself was a horrifying ordeal, performed without anesthesia by specialized surgeons. Candidates, often boys as young as 6 or 7, would drink a numbing concoction of pepper water before the procedure, but the pain was still unimaginable. The severed organs were preserved in jars filled with honey or sesame oil, symbolically referred to as the lifelong savings jar. These jars were kept under the eunuch's bed, as tradition dictated they be buried with him to ensure a whole body in the afterlife. The survival rate was shockingly low, with many dying from infection or blood loss, yet the promise of power and wealth kept families volunteering their sons. Once inside the palace, eunuchs climbed the ranks through cunning and loyalty. The most infamous, Lai Lining, rose from a lowly servant to become the head eunuch under Empress Dowager Cixi. His closeness to her was so scandalous that rumors swirled about their relationship. Some even claimed he advised her on state affairs. Lai amassed a fortune through bribes and favors, flaunting his wealth with jade jewelry and silk robes finer than those of many nobles. His influence was so vast that officials bribed him to secure appointments, making him one of the most feared power brokers in the empire. But eunuchs weren't just political players, they were also masterful hoarders of secrets and treasure. Legends persist about hidden vaults beneath the Forbidden City, where eunuchs stashed gold, jade, and stolen imperial artifacts. Some say Lai Lining buried chests of treasure in secret tunnels, their locations lost after his mysterious death. Modern excavations have turned up cryptic markings in palace walls, fueling speculation that these caches might still exist, waiting to be discovered. The Department of Eunuchs was a paradox, a system designed to create powerless servants that instead birthed some of history's most formidable insiders. Their legacy is a dark reminder of how power can flourish in the most unexpected places, even under the blade. And as we'll soon see, China's ancient innovations extended far beyond the palace walls, into realms that would shape the world in ways no one could have predicted. Now, shifting from the hidden corridors of the Forbidden City, let's explore a starkly visible form of ancient justice: tattoos as punishment. While today tattoos are often seen as personal expressions of art or identity, in ancient China, they served a far darker purpose. Criminals guilty of serious offenses like theft or rebellion were branded with indelible facial markings known as mo. These tattoos weren't just painful, they were designed to humiliate and ostracize, turning the wearer into a walking billboard of shame. The practice dates back to the Zhou dynasty and persisted until the Qing era, with each dynasty adapting the markings to signify different crimes. Some inscriptions even spelled out the offense, ensuring the condemned could never escape societal judgment. Yet, not all tattoos in ancient China carried such stigma. Among the Baiyu minority tribes of the south, tattoos held a sacred, protective significance. Warriors inked their bodies to ward off evil spirits or symbolize rites of passage, while fishermen believed tattoos of dragons or waves would protect them from drowning. These designs were marks of pride, a striking contrast to the punitive mo of the Han Chinese majority. The Baiyu's reverence for body art offers a fascinating glimpse into how cultural perspectives on tattoos could diverge so dramatically within the same civilization. This duality still echoes in modern China, where tattoos remain controversial. Traditional Confucian values, which view the body as a sacred inheritance from one's parents, have long clashed with tattoo culture. Even today, many older generations associate tattoos with criminality, a lingering shadow of the punitive Mo system. Government officials and military personnel are often barred from having visible tattoos, and some public pools deny entry to tattooed individuals. Yet, among younger generations, tattoos are increasingly embraced as fashion statements, creating a generational divide rooted in ancient history. Archaeological finds add another layer to this story. Excavations of Han Dynasty tombs have revealed figurines with facial tattoos, likely depicting real criminals. Meanwhile, texts like the Book of Later Han describe how some branded individuals formed outlaw communities, turning their markings into symbols of defiance. It's a poignant reminder that even the harshest punishments can't always erase human resilience or the desire to reclaim one's identity. From tools of oppression to emblems of resistance, tattoos in ancient China reveal a complex interplay of power, culture, and personal expression. And as we'll see next, even the most ordinary objects like a bowl of soup could carry extraordinary stories in this civilization's rich history. Now, let's move from the markings on skin to something far more unexpected: a tomb that held a meal frozen in time. Imagine uncovering a 2,000-year-old bowl of soup, still perfectly preserved, as if it had been served just yesterday. This isn't a scene from a fantasy novel, it's the reality of Lady Di's tomb, one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries from the Western Han Dynasty. When archaeologists opened her tomb in Mawangdui in the early 1970s, they found a feast for the afterlife. Among the treasures were lacquerware food vessels, their contents miraculously intact. One bowl held a clear broth with delicate bones floating in it, while others contained grains, meats, and even what appeared to be herbal concoctions. These weren't just symbolic offerings, they were real meals, prepared with care for a noblewoman's journey into eternity. The secret to this incredible preservation. Anaerobic conditions. Lady Di's tomb was sealed with layers of charcoal and white clay, creating an airtight environment that starved bacteria of oxygen. Without microbes to break them down, organic materials like food, textiles, and even the lady's own body resisted decay. Her flesh was still supple, her joints movable, a level of preservation so rare it sparked global fascination. But the soup wasn't just a curiosity, it was a window into Han Dynasty culinary arts. Analysis revealed ingredients like dogwood, lotus seeds, and barley, showcasing a sophisticated understanding of flavor and nutrition. Some vessels even held recipes hinting at dishes like spiced stews and fermented sauces. For historians, these weren't just leftovers, they were cookbooks from the past. Lady Di's tomb also shattered assumptions about ancient diets. While Confucian texts emphasized frugality, her lavish provisions, including 38 bamboo trays of food, proved that elites indulged in gastronomic luxury. The variety suggested seasonal eating, with pickled vegetables for winter and fresh fruits for summer, all carefully packed for her eternal comfort. This discovery didn't just preserve soup, it preserved a mindset. The Han Dynasty believed the afterlife mirrored the living world, and tombs like Lady Di's were stocked with everything one might need, from cosmetics and silk robes to board games and, yes, a hot meal. It's a poignant reminder that for all their grandeur, ancient civilizations shared our most human anxieties, like the fear of going hungry, even in death. And as we'll soon see, the ingenuity of ancient China didn't stop at tombs. From preserved banquets to early forms of sports, their innovations continue to surprise us. Now, let's take a swing at one of history's most surprising debates. Did ancient China invent golf centuries before Scotland, while the rolling greens of St. Andrews might claim the title? Evidence from the Tang Dynasty suggests a strikingly similar game called Chuiwen, meaning hit ball, was already in play by the 7th century. Picture this, nobles in flowing robes using curved clubs to knock wooden balls into holes, all while strolling through imperial gardens. Sound familiar? Ming Dynasty paintings from the 14th century remove any doubt. These scenes show players with clubs, balls, and even what appear to be early caddies. One vivid illustration depicts a gentleman mid-swing, his posture uncannily like a modern golfer's, aiming for a marked hole. The equipment differed. Clubs were bamboo with jade embellishments, and balls were leather stuffed with feathers. But the essence was unmistakable: precision, patience, and a love of leisurely competition. But here's where historians tee off into controversy. Some argue Chuiwen was merely a precursor, a distant cousin to golf rather than its direct ancestor. Critics point out key differences. Chuiwen lacked standardized rules or courses, and games were often played on uneven terrain rather than manicured fairways. Others counter that the core idea, using a club to propel a ball toward a target, is too aligned to be coincidence. After all, trade routes like the Silk Road could have carried the concept westward, morphing into the game we know today. The debate gets even thornier when you consider Mongolia's Baiku, a similar stick and ball game, or Persia's Chogan, which influenced European polo. Without a clear paper trail, we're left with intriguing fragments. For instance, Scottish traders documented in China during the Yuan dynasty might have witnessed Chuiwen and brought the idea home. Or perhaps great minds simply converged on a timeless pastime after all. Hitting objects with sticks is a universal human impulse from ancient Egypt to the Mayans. What's undeniable is that Chuiwen reflected Tang dynasty values: elegance, strategy, and harmony with nature. Emperors like Xuanzong were said to play, and the game became a symbol of aristocratic refinement. Ming texts even describe tournaments with prizes of gold and silk, a far cry from today's trophy cups. So, did China invent golf? Maybe. But what's certain is that centuries before Scotland's links were dreamed up, another culture was already perfecting the art of the swing. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey through ancient China's most shocking secrets, from terracotta armies to soup-filled tombs, and now a game that might just rewrite sports history. As we wrap up this journey through ancient China's astonishing secrets, let's take a moment to revisit some of the most jaw-dropping revelations. Picture this: a secret police force employing trained monkeys as spies, lurking in the shadows of imperial courts. Or Zhang Heng's earthquake detector, a bronze marvel so precise it could pinpoint tremors centuries before modern seismology. And who could forget Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb, with its rivers of mercury and an eternal terracotta army standing guard? These aren't just curiosities, they're testaments to a civilization that defied expectations at every turn. But ancient China's legacy isn't just about the bizarre or the monumental, it's about how these innovations rippled across the globe. Take gunpowder, stumbled upon by alchemists seeking immortality, only to reshape warfare from the Ming dynasty to the battlefields of Europe. Or paper money, a revolutionary convenience that spiraled into history's first hyperinflation under the Mongols. Even something as simple as the toothbrush, with its humble hog bristle origins, traces back to Ming workshops. These weren't isolated triumphs, they were sparks that lit up the world. And then there are the contradictions: a culture that celebrated female rulers like Wu Zetian, yet bound women's feet into grotesque golden lotuses. A society that built Su Song's towering mechanical clock, then banned ocean-going ships for a century. Ancient China was a tapestry of brilliance and brutality, where cosmic astronomers charted supernovas while criminals endured tattooed faces as punishment. These paradoxes remind us that history is never one-dimensional. It's a mosaic of human ingenuity and frailty. So here's a question to leave you with: which fact shattered your assumptions the most? Was it the Han Dynasty's biological warfare, the Tang Dynasty's ant-based diabetes tests, or the possibility that golf was born in imperial gardens? Drop your answer in the comments. We'd love to hear which revelation made you rethink the past. If this deep dive into ancient China's hidden stories captivated you, don't miss out on more historical mysteries. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join us as we unearth more mind-blowing truths from the annals of time. After all, history isn't just about dates and dusty artifacts. It's about the astonishing, the unexpected, and the utterly human.